Hello and welcome back to Larissa's Kitchen, the show that's been engaging in wild speculation for 4 seasons. Today we're going to turn the clock back about 700 years and travel to medieval Belgium, where we'll be making a delicious Flemish stew. And our carbonnade à la Flamande will rest atop a very traditional bed of French fries. Alright, so what are we going to need for this carbonnade? Well, we're going to need 1.5 pounds chuck roast. Now we'll be trimming this and cubing it. We're also going to need 3 to 4 very large Spanish onions. We'll be slicing these thinly. We need 1/2 teaspoon of allspice, a teaspoon of thyme, a tablespoon of all-purpose flour, and a tablespoon of brown sugar. We're also going to need some kosher salt and fresh cracked black pepper. You need 1 quart of beef stock. We're going to top this with some yellow mustard, so just make sure you have that on hand. We're also going to need about 2 tablespoons of chopped parsley and 2 to 3 bay leaves. Very importantly, we're going to need a Belgian-style ale, 12 ounces of it. Now this leffe is fairly decent priced at $8 for a 6-pack. You could buy a Chimay that's going to cost you $20 for an entire bottle. Now if you're a Trappist monk and your deal is brewing Trappist-style beer, by all means use the Chimay. Otherwise, leffe is a good choice. Alright. We need to trim all of the beef fat and connective tissue out of this beef because unlike pork, beef fat does not melt entirely while you're heating it. It will stay in the beef and it's going to end up being chewy. So we're going to turn these into bite-sized pieces and get rid of all this fat and all this connective tissue. Alright, we're going to cut both ends of these onions off, peel them, and then cut them in half. Now, because all of this is going together with the beef, you can do this without cleaning your cutting board first. Okay, the first thing we need to do is start cooking this meat in 2 to 3 tablespoons of bacon fat. Now we're going to be using the electric skillet again. So if you've got bacon fat on hand like I do, you can just use that. Otherwise, you need to start with 2 to 3 strips of bacon. Okay, now I've got this electric skillet set to 270 degrees. Otherwise it's medium high if you don't have a temperature setting. Okay, about 1 teaspoon of salt needs to go down and probably about 1/2 teaspoon of fresh cracked black pepper. Okay, now that this has been cooked for most of the way through, we're going to go ahead and take it out. And then the onions are going to go in the pan. Alright, we're going to let these cook down until they are very soft and probably only about 1/4 of this volume. Okay, these have softened quite a bit. They're starting to get translucent and they smell really good. They'll continue cooking down throughout the simmering process. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and add our spices, the allspice, the thyme, and the brown sugar. Get this mixed up. Alright, and then I'm going to sprinkle this with the flour. Now, the reason why I don't sprinkle the beef with the flour is because then we just brown the flour instead of browning our beef. So go ahead and get this mixed in. And we'll let the flour cook a little bit, of course. Alright, that flour is nicely cooked, so let's go ahead and add our beef back in. Okay, all of our beer. Oh, this smells so good. All right, about half of this beef stock. We may not need to use any more. We'll check it at about an hour and a half after it's been simmering for about an hour and a half and see if we need to add any more back in. Okay, a couple of tablespoons of mustard. And our parsley and bay leaves. All right, let's stir this a little bit and then we're going to go ahead and cover it and turn it down to simmer. Okay, we're going to let this simmer for 2 to 2.5 hours until this meat is very tender. Now, chuck roast is a very tough cut of meat, and it's a traditional cut that you would use for this stew because it's going to simmer for a long time. So, we'll check it probably about the hour and a half mark. If a considerable amount of our liquid has boiled away, we'll go ahead and add some more beef stock in. Okay, the hour and a half is up. Let's go ahead and take a look, and be careful of steam burns, because I already burned myself. Alright, this looks like we're going to have plenty of liquid in here, so I'm going to give it a stir, and then we'll put the lid back on and set the timer for another half an hour. All right, let's give this delicious stew a taste. Oh, this meat is perfectly tender. Everything is spectacular. If not, you'll need to start with 2 to 3 slices of bacon first. Don't worry about taking the bacon out, it'll be fine in there.